Welcome to Gurukul Lectures. In the ongoing series of Leadership and Team Development, today we will be talking on a very pertinent topic called coaching and mentoring. The words mentoring and coaching are often used interchangeably, but they do not describe the same type of working relationships. Both share specific goals, including the employee learning and career development that leads to a peak performance and the realization of the full potential. However, the definitions, the focus, the role, and the approach and tools of each are different. So when you talk about coaching and mentoring, each has its own domain, each has its own specific definition, each has its own particular role and approach, its paradigm, its frontier, its boundaries. But yes, the outcome of both is that the leader is developed to the par excellence to take care of the specific challenges, to take care of the critical thinking, to do the planning very, very pertinently and effectively. So both coaching and mentoring sessions are being done at the corporate levels so that both are able to play a pivotal role as far as achieving the specific goals in the organization is concerned. And the impact is that the leaders are developed, the employees are developed, and whosoever stakeholders are there as far as the planning and development of the organization and the corporate sector is concerned, both coaching and mentoring, they play a very important role. Although the specific definition, role, approach and the tools are definitely distinct in each case, that is both in coaching and mentoring. Now let me start with a concept called mentoring. Mentoring is an informal association focused on building a two-way mutually beneficial relationships for long-term career movements. And if you talk about the definition of coaching, coaching can be defined as partnering with the clients in a very thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So when you talk about the definitions of both coaching and mentoring, the mentoring, definitely the domain is very informal, and actually it is focused on a two-way and a mutual benefit relationship for a long-term career movements. So what a mentor does, there is no specific format as far as the mentoring part is concerned. Everything is in a very informal setup. But yes, the mentor stands in a very distinct position so that the mentee follows his ways. So that is why we say it's a beautiful relationship which is two-way, and the eventual result is also mutual in nature. So there is a beneficial relationship which is helping in the long-term career movements of the organization and of the individual, be it a leader and be it an employee. So coaching and mentoring plays a pivotal role in developing the leaders for tomorrow, as well as the employees who are taking care of the 21st century challenges, and to understand the intent of the leader and intent of the organization. Now when you talk about, on the contrary, the concept of coaching, the coaching can be defined as partnering with the clients in a very, very thought-provoking and a creative process. It not only inspires the personal and the potentials of the leader, but also of the employees. Because when you talk about a coaching, there are some coaching sessions which are undertaken by the corporate to develop the hidden potential of the leaders. Not only this, the coaching centers are also there for developing the intent, developing the personal potential and the hidden talented of the employees also. So when a coaching is done, it is very, very formal process. It's a very creative process. It's an very inspiring process. The outcome of both coaching and mentoring are actually thought-provoking, and after the coaching sessions, the outcomes is that you are able to, as an individual, understand your own personality, understand your own capabilities, understand your personal intent, and of course, it also helps in a journey of a professional development of the leaders for tomorrow. The process of coaching, it often unlocks the previous untapped sources of imagination, productivity, and leadership. We are living in a contemporary world wherein we every day, the technology is changing with the blink of an eye. We have the intent of becoming a future leader. So the future leader cannot, be actually resourceful unless and until the coaching and mentoring sessions are in place, and they have to be frequently done, because to match the pace of the technology, to match the pace of the learning, to match the pace of the dynamism and the ever changing atmosphere around, you need to be very specific. You need to be very cautious about having an approach to understand the changing dynamism of the present contemporary organization and the world of today. The specific changes which are taking place, to be few, counting a few, we have artificial intelligence, we have machine learning, we have Internet of Things, we have so many changes, so many automations are taking place. So if the leaders are not undergoing the process of coaching and mentoring, that is few sessions at the formal level and few sessions at the informal level, they will not be able to understand the basic challenges, the nuances of the change, and will not be able to run on the path of the changing technology and the changing dynamic path. And that's the only path which leads to the success of the organization. So to maintain this space, coaching and mentoring is definitely essential. So let us now elaborate the role of mentoring. Now, when you talk about mentoring, talking with a person who has identified their needs prior to entering into a mentoring relationships, the emphasis is on active listening, providing information, making suggestions, and establishing connections. So when you talk about mentoring, you need to talk to a person, and actually you need to be very specific about who has identified their needs prior to entering into a mentoring relationships. So when you talk about having a very formal and having a mentor-mentee relationship, as a mentor you need to do some R&D to understand what kind of a person is a mentee. You have to identify as a mentor what are his specific needs, and of course you need to have some knowledge about what kind of an individual he is, and the emphasis is on active learning, providing the information, making the suggestions, and establishing connections. So mentoring is all about talking with a person with an identified need prior entering into a mentoring relationships, and active listening, providing entire span and the spectrum of information which is the need of today, and making some suggestions and establishing the connection. Now on the other side, when you talk about coaching, coaching is listening to a person identified with what they need and helping them developing an action plan. So emphasis is on a person or the client finding the solution, not instructing or leading them. So coaching definitely is a very definite path oriented. Focus is there, arrow is there, end is there where you want to reach. So when you talk about listening to a person, identifying what they need and helping them developing an action plan, so you need to find out what the client wants. So you need to put some sessions together on coaching of specific sessions and making the process client oriented. So you need to find out some solutions, actually instructing etc., which are client oriented, and leading them in that specific particular direction. So now let me give some light on what approach mentoring is. When you talk about mentoring, this is a self-directed modus operandi wherein the participants have a choice, and this approach can begin with a self-matching process and continue throughout the relationship using a very committed timeline to determine how often, where the individuals will meet, where they will identify the goals, and so on and so forth. Whereas if you talk about the other aspect that is coaching. Coaching is definitely a very formal activity. It is client-oriented activity. Its perspective is definitely not very, very narrow. It is definitely narrow in terms of client needs. So it is a structured modus operandi which is more frequently used, whereby the participants are working within that perspective narrow framework, and agenda is also very, very specific in nature for a short period of time and oriented towards certain results. So usually a coach is assigned to an employee within an organization. So when you have a coach, you have a direction, you have a success rate which is very high. Your domain is very specific, clear and fixed as per the client needs. The results are also very, very specific and certain in nature. So what role coaching plays, you cannot even imagine. And that's the need of today, because the client needs and objectives, what they want, they keep changing because of the dynamism, because of the changing technology, because of the political scenario, because of the economic scenario. So everything putting in one frame, the coaching has to be directed towards achieving those particular goals. And when the companies talk about the leadership development, words like coaching and mentoring often get tossed around. And not only that, but the terms are used interchangeably. So most listeners just assume they mean the same thing. And certainly, at the first instance, they do seem to be one and the same. And both, after all, involve an authority figure who helps guide a leader to success. And that's the same thing, right? So in reality, there's a big difference between mentoring and leadership coaching, and both tasks are essential. What more? When development programs combine or mislabel the two, the leaders miss out. So what's the difference? And why should we care? Here, what mentoring and leadership coaching actually mean is that why both are important to leadership development. The mentors, when you talk about mentoring, they use their own life experience, what they have gone through, what their life story is, what their experiences, what their education level, how they have led their professional life, what was their official background. So all these parameters, all these factors make a mentor. Mentor does not come from air. They come and use their own experiences while mentoring their mentees. So mentoring is more relationship based rather than performance based. The mentors share his or her own personal experiences, their own insights and their own knowledge with the mentee, and the mentee gets overall benefit of the mentor's experience. So mentoring isn't focused on the specific skills and actions to improve them. It's more about their overall development. On the flip side, the mentees may also share their experiences with the mentors. So they can ask them for advice, for vent, for test out the new ideas and more. Now the relationship matters in their development. The mentors, they do not lead the leaders to immediate action and change. They are still an important part of the leadership development. The new leaders need that guiding hand and confident to help them grow into a better professionals. Now I'll give you some statistics which is very interesting. 61% of more than 7,000 millennials, they were surveyed by Deloitte company this year, that is the current year, and they said that having somebody to turn to for advice and help for developing their leadership skills was extremely beneficial. So you can say that out of the total percentage, 61% is a quite substantial number. So 61% of the total millennials which were interviewed by Deloitte, in terms of, they were asked a question that if you have a mentor in your organization at the corporate level and they give you some suggestions, they are the torch bearers for you, and does it make any difference? So the answer was yes. So if you have the mentors in the organization, be it a corporate sector, be it a higher education institutes, the mentor-mentee relationships, the outcome is very obvious. It helps in building the organization. It helps in building and developing the mentees. It helps in building the corporate overall success rate. So it is extremely beneficial to develop the leadership skills in the leaders, and of course some kind of mentor-mentee relationship also helps in developing the employees also. So when the leaders are developed and when the employees understand the leaders, it's definitely a win-win situation for the corporate sector. What more can you ask for? And what more those who said they plan to stay with their employer for more than 5 years or twice as likely to say they had a mentor. So we can say that the sustenance ratio and the people who have a long stay in one particular organization, they have only one thing to say, that we are here in this organization serving a particular corporate sector because of our mentors, because they keep guiding us, they keep suggesting the ways, they give us the direction where we need to move on. And if there is any kind of a dissatisfaction in terms of the employer-employee relationships, in terms of management-employee relationship, in terms of management-leader relationship, yes, it was the mentor who fixed everything. So, this is what the results say as far as the recent study done by the Deloitte. So when the leaders are connected to a mentor, they are also more connected to their job, because the mentor always gives them a direction in terms of the importance of their job, in terms of what they have to do, in terms of which path they have to take, and if they have any kind of a critical problems in terms of while commencing their job or while leading their staff, in terms of their leadership roles, in terms of any kind of ambiguities they have, or they are not able to assimilate any kind of a solution to their problems as a leader in steering the organization. Yes, they are the mentors who fix everything, who are there for the leaders, for them to develop further and steer the organization in a very leading manner. Another study, a study conducted by Gallup in May this year, found that 44% of the employees surveyed who said that their managers had regular meetings with them, they also described themselves as engaged, compared with just 20% of those who did not meet with their managers regularly. So that means what? If you are regular with your mentors, in meeting them, in having regular meetings with them, or you feel engaged with them, or you always talk to them in terms of your problems, in terms of your day-to-day activities, so definitely you feel more connected to your job, because mentors means solutions, and mentoring at a regular basis makes a substantial difference, and as far as the success rate of the corporate sector is concerned. Mentoring them is also very crucial in keeping the leaders committed to their jobs and striving to be always better and better. Let us now talk about the coaches. We have already talked about at length about the mentors. Now let us talk about the coaches, because they are relating with the coaching. Coaches focus on action, whereas mentors focus on relationships, and rest will follow. So what coaches have to say, let us think about that. While mentoring comes from the experience of the mentor, the leadership coaching does the opposite. It does come from the experience of those being coached. So there's a difference between the mentoring and coaching altogether, although they are complementary to each other. but they have a different paradigm and the frontiers and the perspective. The perspective of the mentoring is about building relationships, and the mentor-mentee, they go hand in hand, and the leaders, after mentoring sessions with the mentor, they steer the organization in a very better way. They feel more connected to their job, and if the mentors are there in place, the organization have more people staying for a longer period, and the turnover ratio is extremely less. But when you talk about the coaches in the organization, it is all action oriented, and while mentoring, it comes from the experience of the mentor. The leaders coaching does the opposite, because it comes from the people who have already been coached by the coaches. The mentors, they share their experiences, but the coaches, they are the prompt leaders to reflect their experiences and draw their own conclusions. For example, a mentor will point out what he or she thinks a mentee could have done better, while a coach will ask the individual what he or she could have improved on as to how to make it happen. The leader's coaching is more active and requires the leader to think not just about improving, but also to create an action plan. So here the difference lies. The leadership coaching is more about, the action, the active participation, about improving, and eventually it centers about that, yes, this is the most important action plan. When you talk about the mentee relationships with the mentor, the mentee is substantially influenced by the mentor in a very contented manner, because they feel that at the back end, the mentor is standing like a mountain. So this is what reflects into his personality. So he dares to move forward with the experiences of the mentor. He will say, move on, I'm with you. So there are less number of issues. The people are more satisfied. The people are more contented. The people are more daring when the mentors are there in the organization. Whereas when you talk about the other aspect of the coaching overall, we can say that coaching is action oriented, because you are getting the experiences of the people who already have been coached by the coaching sessions in the organization. And the last example which I would like to give in this session is that a mentor will always point out that he or she thinks a mentee could have done better, while the coach will say an individual what he or she could have improved on, how to make it happen. So the center of the mentor-mentee is on the relationship building, whereas on the the other aspects of the coaching, it is on the other aspects of the action plan. It is action oriented. It is client perspective, which is always there in mind, that what he wants and exactly what is the domain. So the skills are given, the coaching is given specifically in that direction.